Traveling to Consciousness, exploring spiritual journeys to find answers in uncertainty.
What is up, conscious monkeys? Welcome to another episode of Traveling to Consciousness. I'm your host, Clayton. Today's guest is a one-of-a-kind dream oracle. It's definitely the first for the show. Her goal is to help people consciously and consistently connect with their dreams. She shares empowering messages that she receives in her dreams that she believes are just meant for the world. And she is also the founder of the Dream Oracle School. So we're going to dive into all this stuff. But with that being said, conscious monkeys, welcome to the show, Dream Oracle Holly Emmerson. Before we start the show, I must warn you that there are ads throughout this podcast episode. If you'd like to get the show ad-free, you're able to get access by downloading the official Traveling to Consciousness app. It's available in the Google Play Store and iOS Store. I will note that there is a small monthly fee associated to get these episodes ad-free. And this is an important part. Make sure that any purchases you make on the website, travelingtoconsciousness.com, because products are going to be 15 to 30% more expensive through the app because, the big boys got to get their own check. Even though you're purchasing this stuff through the website, you will still be able to enjoy all this content on the app. Now, if you prefer the free route, you can get a free login on the app, and that will grant you access to challenges, notifications when new episodes arrive, discounts, exclusive content, and so much more. All of this just by searching Traveling to Consciousness in your phone's app store, or click the link below. Now, conscious monkeys, let's get the show started. Holly, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's kind of exciting because dreams are one of those things that I have been absolutely fascinated with. I've always been trying to lucid dream more, trying to astral project, all that stuff. But before we get into all that deep rabbit hole, what brought you? What would you consider a dream oracle to actually be?
Well, how I define dream oracle, and it's literally a definition that I came up with myself because I had never heard of anybody doing what I do. So I just kind of coined it myself. Maybe it means something else to other people. But for me, it's just somebody who can dream on behalf of others. So if you had a question, I can take your question into the dream world and get the answers for you while I'm sleeping, and then wake up and then share the messages with you. So that's kind of the basic definition of what I consider a dream oracle.
That's wild because I definitely was not considering that to be a dream oracle. I didn't realize that's what you were doing. But that's super cool. So before you go to bed, do you set your intention with this person, that question, and then just see what happens in your dreams?
Yeah, exactly. So I work with my clients to kind of hone in on their question, and I do my best to make sure that it is as empowering as possible for the client. And then I go to sleep with the question and am present to the question throughout my dreaming. And I'll wake up throughout the night, record the messages down, and then wake up in the morning and share the messages with the client.
That's pretty cool. So, I mean, in my experiences, I don't dream, I guess, every single night. And it's kind of been a part of my practice to actually start, trying to get to that place where I do remember my dreams every night. So is dreaming something that does that just come to you naturally? Are you able to let's put it this way. Do you dream every single night?
I do. I usually have 5 to 7 dreams a night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Sometimes it'll be 3, but no, I definitely do dream every night.
That's crazy. So then are you kind of conscious in these dreams? Are you able to, because for those who don't know, lucid dreaming is the fact that you're conscious whenever you're in a dream and you're able to kind of manipulate it. So then is, I guess, lucid dreaming, does that come supernatural to you, or do you just not really even mess around with lucid dreaming?
So, how I define lucid dreaming is just being aware that you're sleeping. And then a form of lucid dreaming is being able to control your dreams. So, when I'm working with my clients, typically I'm lucid dreaming, but I'm not controlling the dream. I'm just kind of witnessing or going through the dream. And I'm very aware that I'm sleeping, but I don't control anything. I can't control any of those. Spirit's really great. Spirit just doesn't let me control any of those. And then yes, there's the lucid dreaming where the other type of lucid dreaming where you can control your dream.
Okay. And
So
so,
sometimes I'm lucid, and sometimes I'm not. But when I'm working with clients, then I'm lucid and conscious that I'm dreaming.
right, because I imagine that it would provide some sort of, what's the word I want to look for here? It would provide some sort of uh, malpractice, let's call it, if you were someone asked you a question and then you were actively manipulating the dream as you were going through it.
Exactly. Exactly. That would not be like in integrity.
So no, let's take a step back, because there's always a question that I love asking guests and figuring out is what was the, maybe you were when you were a kid, maybe you had parents who, or school or parental figures who tried to push you in a certain way, or just figure out what Holly wanted to be when she grew up. So what was the first thing that you wanted to be whenever you were a kid?
When I was a kid and somebody would ask me that question, I never had a word for what I wanted to be because I didn't like what I wanted to be. I didn't know what that was, but I knew that I wanted to do something big and I knew I wanted to work with humanity in a deep way. But when you're 5, how do you say that? So, you know, sometimes I was like, I want to be a vet. But deep down, I always had like this vision. And how do you tell adults that when you're 5? I didn't know.
It might be a good thing you didn't know, because some of them may have found a way to kind of push you back or hold you back from achieving such a thing.
Perhaps, yeah. Yeah. That probably would have been the case.
So then do you feel like being a dream oracle is what that calling is or was, or that, because even at the beginning of this you were saying that you've never heard of someone being called a dream oracle, or it even being used in the way that you use it. So do you feel like, a dream oracle was that thing that you were feeling whenever you were, 5, 6 years old?
um, I think there is a little bit of that, but it's also more of like what I'm doing in the sense of what I'm like my mission is with my Dream Oracle School, helping others to connect more fully with themselves, to align more deeply with their higher selves and their hearts. That's more of what I'm super passionate about. And right now, this just happens to be the vehicle that I'm using at this point in my life. So for right now, I mean, the answer is yes. I don't know how that may evolve, shift, and grow in the future. But the whole working with others, helping people align with themselves, with their hearts, with their highest selves, that's what really feels like the big passion for me.
Mm, that's awesome. So then was like dreaming something, because that's interesting, right? Because I assume Dream Oracle School, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you teach people how to become dream oracles. And so, on this progression, right? I'm curious if you always knew, because I'm interested in the Dream Oracle School, so we'll get there. But I'm curious
Mhm.
if you always knew how to dream, or was dreaming always something you just naturally did? Like what was do you remember your first dream? What was your whole progression like with dreaming?
So I always did dream. And as a young girl, I was always curious about dreams. I remember having a dream journal when I was a child. I remember asking my mom about like what are dreams? Where do we go when we dream? And she was always when it came to dreams, she was very supportive. She was always like, oh, your spirit leaves your body and you go and you travel around, and that was kind of the extent of it, and then you come back in your body when you wake up and now you're here. And so that's kind of what my mom told me. And i I just didn't really know what to do with dreams. I often would try and decode and decipher my own dreams, but they didn't, like, when I looked things up, symbols up, it didn't really fully resonate. So for the longest time, I actually didn't work with my dreams because I didn't know what to do with them. And so even though I would dream every night, I kind of got away from journaling them and focusing on them. And then I started, I guess it was in my early 30s, I felt really called to start remembering my dreams again. And so I would love in the morning, this is actually one of like my tips on how to remember your dreams, is I would always keep hitting my snooze button, because when you hit your snooze and you like quickly fall back asleep, you fall back into a dream and you might continue that same dream, or you would start a new dream. And then when you're like awoken, I would really focus on remembering my dreams. So I found that was like a really good tool to like work out the dream remembering muscles. And so then I just started doing that. And then it wasn't until 2017 when I went to Egypt that this whole dream oracle thing woke up within me. And I really started to connect with the dream world in a much more conscious way and really understand. I don't know, it was weird. It was like literally all these things, just all this dreaming wisdom just kind of downloaded from spirit to
Interesting.
me, and also my teacher that I work with.
And do you think that was a consequence of, because there's an interesting like idea of where you get I'm not sure where I fall with this, but like if you go to certain areas like on earth, that your spirit, your soul, your body, your human instrument combination, whatever you want to call it, when you go to certain areas on earth, you like receive downloads from, I don't know what it is, help me out here, either past lives or whatever. So is that
Hmm.
kind of like what you experienced, or like what's your interpretation of all that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Um, so I think that that is real to a certain extent. And for me personally, I do feel like if I had gone earlier in my life, it probably wouldn't have woken up as much, just because I was not as, um, like, I just wasn't as conscious, or I wasn't as aware. I wasn't at that stage on my path to be awoken. So I think we do have energetic resonances with certain places of the planet, and maybe even other planets too. And yeah, I think when we do go to these areas, there can be like a soul remembrance downloads. And I also think that our own consciousness can either stand in the way, or just, I don't know if stand in the way is the right way to word it, but it's just like we may or may not be ready to consciously be aware of what those downloads are.
Right, because there's some sort of like barrier that you're experiencing in this current life that you need to kind of, I guess, either get past, understand, push through to unlock that.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I had to do a lot of personal healing um, before I could really step into doing what I'm doing now. And I always wanted to do what I'm doing now, but I wasn't ready because I wasn't healed. So I think my own healing journey was a big stepping stone, a big piece of the puzzle that I needed to really dive into. And of course, I'm still always working on healing. It's not like, I'm done, but I had to get to a certain place within that journey within myself, I think, to have the confidence to step into these gifts too.
No, that that totally makes sense. And there's actually an analogy I have. I'm sure the audience has heard it before, but I'll explain it to you. Where I've experienced this in my life where I'll be trying to do something or get something done, and it'll be like ramming my head into a wall. but then I need to almost do something, like whether it's set boundaries or I don't know, show myself more self love or something. And it's almost like a gate system where then like this gate lifts up, and that thing that was so difficult, I just like breeze through the next like 10 steps. And I've just noticed that these gates are kind of like placed throughout my life where it's almost this barrier to prevent me from like, overworking myself or realizing I need to focus on something else and then come back to this thing.
Yeah, 100%. I can totally relate to that.
Cool. Plus one for the gate analogy.
Yeah.
It was interesting too. Something you said earlier was that your mom was telling you about where your spirit goes when you dream. And I find that so fascinating because I know whenever I was a kid, if you have a nightmare, and I assume majority of people can relate to this, could be my projection, but I assume majority of people, when they have a dream, their parents tell them that it's not real, it's imaginary, it's made up, don't worry about it. And I personally believe that might do some sort of suppression to actually trying to remember your dreams, because it's like, okay, this isn't important, I'm not going to remember it. So I found it really fascinating that you said that your mom actually almost encouraged it or cultivated it, or was like, this is the idea. Like your soul goes somewhere else and does stuff. So, were your parents kind of, or your mom at least, kind of spiritually inclined in that path?
My mom was spiritually and is spiritually inclined for sure. And so I'm really grateful that she allowed that to foster. And she didn't, yeah, she didn't do anything to like shut it down. She did a lot of things to kind of encourage that. And I think, just giving me the space to have those dreams and to not make them smaller or less real, I think was ultimately super helpful.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
Conscious monkeys. I need to tell you about these psychedelic fabric mushrooms that are absolutely incredible that I've just come across. They're all one of a kind and are honestly a perfect trip buddy. They're an incredible addition to anyone's like house or room who takes psychedelics and you have a certain spot that you like to go and relax. You're going to have to check out these Aquarius mushrooms. These high-end mushrooms are made with 100% recycled material and are all one of a kind. Honestly, these mushrooms are something I'm not going to be able to describe in words alone. You're going to need to check out the link below and search to see if you can find one that resonates with your soul. Remember, they're all one of a kind and made from 100% recycled material. Aquarius mushrooms, premium mushrooms for the new age of enlightenment. Get yours today. Conscious monkeys. I need to bring your attention to this company that I've been using over the past few months, and probably longer now if you're hearing this, that has absolutely changed the way that I'm actually interfacing with the world. It's a company by the name of Conscious Technologies. And what they do is actually create these harmonizing units. And what it does is it actually takes the rotation of EMF frequencies that are in your area and harmonizes them. They make them in line with the true natural frequency of the universe around you. And they're incredible products. I actually went and I've tested out their quantum flow unit. I've tested out their meditation bed, their core harmonizer. And quite frankly, they were so incredible that I actually bought the cell phone EMF harmonizer for my cell phone. I was also lucky enough that Ross threw in a necklace as well. So I've been wearing that thing. And quite frankly, I'm even wearing it to bed. And my dreams have become so vivid and just intense that it's pretty insane. I honestly feel so grateful to have it. Their mission is to bring forth technologies that support the harmony of mankind and the world at large. Go check out their stuff. I mean, looking's for free. And if I'm being honest, if you click the link below and make a purchase, I do get some kickback. But quite frankly, I wouldn't be promoting it if it didn't work. So with that being said, go check them out. Conscious Technologies LLC, link below. Now let's get back to the interview. Also, speaking of like where you go, I've always seen that there's like all these kind of like different, they're not competing theories, but just like different ideas of like what happens whenever you are dreaming. So, like at this point in your experience, given what you've been told, where do you stand on, you know, like what is a dream? Like where is it? What's happening? How are we even like conscious of it? Like how do you even make sense of it all?
So I think the answer to that is like literally all of the above, in the sense of like all the things that you hear out there, I think are all true. So I believe that when we dream, we go into the realm of spirit, the infinite, the universe. Like we're never not a part of it. And our dreams are just that. And so we can have we can go to different dimensions, we can go to different places, we can explore different versions of ourselves, different timelines, we can connect with loved ones who've passed on, we can even connect with souls that are perhaps coming in. And then there's also, parts of our dreams when you hear like the psychological analysis of dreams, how it's like processing out parts of your day or those things that you're trying to digest consciously or work through. Maybe you're experiencing stress or anxiety. And so there's dreams that help us and reflect that. And so they're not just one thing, dreams, they're infinite number of things. They're everything.
Well, it's interesting too, right? Because, in my mind, I've always kind of tried to categorize of like, oh, this is my subconscious playing out an idea. Or I've had that thought you're saying where it's like, oh, this is just me embodying myself in a different timeline. Or what was the other one that I've thought of before? Or, this makes no sense at all. This can't be real. This is ridiculous. Like you're kind of like in some like mystical place and it just doesn't make sense. So it's interesting to hear you kind of break it down this way because it also feeds into the idea of what would it be? Kind of how what is it? Like we are the universe having a human experience, not like a human experiencing the universe and so it really fits that model. But what becomes also interesting is like do you it feels like there might be a way that you would want to categorize it. This is my analytical mind coming in, so I might be
Yeah,
overanalyzing this.
no, it's great. Let's do it.
You're all for it. All right. So
Yeah.
So are there certain dreams where you like come out and you're like, okay, that was a parallel timeline, or you come out and you're like, okay, that was me in the spirit world or in this higher dimension talking with a loved one or a deceased loved one. Is there I mean, maybe the answer to this is it doesn't even matter, but is there some sort of discernment that you kind of carry with that type of stuff?
Yes, there is. And as you start working with your dreams more, and keeping a dream journal is very foundational to this, you learn to start discerning what these different types of dreams are. There's so many different types of dreams. There's prophetic dreams, there's healing dreams, dreams with like loved ones, dreams of other timelines. Like there'll be, yeah, there's dream. I remember being in this one dream and I was like, I don't think that I'm in the dimension of Earth. I very rarely dream in the dimension of Earth, but this was like very different than what I normally dream. And I was like, I'm not like, what time am I in? And I remember finding a newsstand in my dream and like grabbing a paper to find out what the date was. So different dreams definitely have different feelings. And as you start becoming more conscious of the different dreams, of your own different dreams and how you dream, then you can start to discern between, okay, this one felt like this type of dream. This one felt like, this other reality. This one felt like a future dream. This one felt like, this kind of dream.
Are you able to like call those up on demand then? Like, are you able to say like before going to bed, like I want to have a prophetic dream, or I want to experience the reality where I'm, I don't know, Queen of America or President of America or something? You know what I mean? Like, are you able to like call upon those alternate timelines, or like, do you have that kind of control over it?
That's really funny you asked that because I've never actually really there's been certain things with my dreams where I'm like I'll do intentions and I'll work with those intentions throughout my dreams, but I've just never set that intention or those types of intentions. So when I have prophetic dreams, I just allow those to come when they come. And I've never thought of like, I want to go to, well, actually, that's not necessarily true because there's been times when I'm like, I want to go to connect with like the Pleiades or something like that. And things like that will happen. So, yes, yes, I guess the answer is yes. But those are some good questions. I'm going to have to write those ones down and create those intentions because, yes, I do work very much with intentions. I think other people call it dream incubation. I just learned this term. Um, that's what I think it's been typically known as, but I call it intentions.
Interesting. Dream incubation.
Hmm.
That definitely gives you more
Yeah.
niche down version of intentions.
Yeah. Yeah,
uh,
definitely.
so then what do dream incubations what do those kind of like look like? Like when does that almost start? Like do you have almost like a, this could even go back into whenever you're working on a certain question someone has, right? Like do you I really like that, dream incubations, intention setting for dreams. Do you have like a 30-minute period before bed where you'll like go through a certain process that like sets off like certain intentions or what you want to experience or questions you have, and then do you kind of just like release it when you go to bed, or like what is your dream incubation process look like?
So I when I'm working with clients or really focus on an intention, I will write it down and I will memorize it. So, maybe throughout the day, I'll look at it, I'll memorize it, I'll focus on it, and and then I just take that with me when I go to sleep. So usually what I'll do is I'll have that written down beside my bed. Sometimes you can put it under your pillow. I just have it like on my night table. But for me, what is helpful is the memorizing of it, memorizing
Mm.
of what that one intention is. And I take that with me into the dream world. So it is helpful to, focus on it before you go to sleep, of course. But the memorizing of it for me is what I find is key.
Yeah, that seems super important because I know
Mhm.
I have a dream journal that I'm very inconsistent with. They help for sure, but I would even like, whenever I go to bed, I'd like write down like the date and the time, and then write down like my intention, like if I had a question or something. But I never like completely focused on it, like you're saying. I kind of write it down, and
Mm.
it was almost like a 50-50 shot if I got a dream that would like answer that question. So it sounds like there's a lot of utility in actually sitting there, memorizing it, and almost embodying that question as you go to bed.
Yeah, yeah. You next time you do it, memorize it and let me know how it goes.
Memorize it. And so, what
Yeah.
does your memorizing process look like? Just being able to say it over and over, or like, do you, as
Yeah.
you fall asleep, are you saying it?
Sometimes I am. If I'm working on a client for sure, because I'm like extra diligent. But sometimes when it's just like for myself, I'll just kind of just, I won't be as as focused, but it'll still be memorized. But there's still always like an evening routine, kind of bedtime routine, which is just simple. It can be as complex or as simple as you want, but I find that really helps with the intention as well.
Mm.
It's like saying yes. It's like okay, spirit, this is what my intention is and I'm saying yes to receiving the information and like opening the door to that relationship, opening the door to that conversation,
It's almost like you're
welcoming it in.
feeling, yeah, you're almost feeling into the energy of the words.
Mhm.
You almost need to like embody those at a deep level. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good way to kind of reword it.
Yeah. Words are important, right?
They are, but what's also really interesting that I've learned with dreams is that words are so basic. And like how dreams communicate with us are it's like, we think why don't they just tell us? Because it's like the words are so basic and what needs to be said can't be said with words.
It's so interesting you say this because I do like I kind of do some channeling work. I mean, I have like Akashic readings, but I don't really promote it or anything. And I mostly learned it just so I could do it for myself. And it's so crazy. There's two things here. Number one, it's so crazy how like number one, you have to be so articulate and careful with the words you say because like you use one, I don't want to say wrong word, but if you like misspeak with a word, you might get like a just a no answer, but then if you like alter two words, they'll give you like a 10-page monologue to like answer this idea, because it's almost like tapping into a slightly different frequency, or like, I don't know how to articulate it, but I'm sure there's something similar with dreaming.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. This is why I'm like my students will know that I'm very particular about the wording of intentions. And I remember somebody gave me the example of, so many people often try to manifest abundance,
Mm,
right? And they stop with the word abundance, but they're not defining what that abundance is. And so instead of having an abundance of wealth, they have an abundance of bills. And so
right.
it's like you wanted abundance. Here's the universe is giving you abundance, but you didn't say that you wanted the means to pay off these bills and more. You just stopped at abundance and now you have an abundance of bills.
That's actually crazy too, because if you're thinking about abundance with regards to money, right? Like subconsciously, you're like, I want abundance, but your mind is already fixated in a bill state, let's say, or like a debt state. Then it's just like, it's just going to give you more of what you're already thinking about. It's going to be like, all right, well, here's
Hmm.
more debt. This is what you asked for. And you're like, what are you doing? I didn't want this. It's like, what do you mean? This is what you asked for.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, that's so true. But yeah, no, the way our dreams speak to us, it's uh it's so fascinating when I think about like words and intentions and how the messages come through. So I'm a little bit dyslexic, and I feel like my dyslexia has actually like served me really well with my dreams, because our dreams don't speak to us literally. They don't speak like you read a page from right left to right. I'm like, which way do we read a page again? um,
you might be
but
right to left.
yes,
Normal people left to
yeah,
right.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, our dreams are like that too, because they're just like all over. It's like when you start getting messages. I don't know if you've noticed this with your dreams. There'll be this movie happening in front of you, and then suddenly you'll be like, oh my God, I understand like all these pieces. And it's all like fitting together from like different angles. And you're like, oh, okay, it makes sense. But like if you're using your logical mind, it doesn't make sense.
I'm totally on board with what you're saying, and that's I think real difficult for me, because I love getting analytical and logical about things. But to your point, it's like if you see um what was it? I did ayahuasca, and this was like the same exact thing that they were talking about, where it's like, okay, if you like see I don't know, an ex relationship, like an ex girlfriend or something, and you're talking to her, and something happens, right? It doesn't mean that you should actually go out and start talking to her and do something, right? There could be a deeper meaning here that's more along the lines of, how do you articulate this? Like maybe you need to actually like end it. Like maybe you still have like a connection or something that's leaking, or you know what I mean? Like, of course, it depends person to person, but that's where it gets so fascinating. Of, well, these interpretations, these symbols, these meanings are going to be different for everybody, and it kind of goes to the beginning of what you were saying. Whenever you were getting all these symbols, then you go online and research, and you're like, all right, like I saw this Egyptian pharaoh, and everybody's saying this is the meaning for pharaoh, but that doesn't make sense in my
Yeah.
context.
Yeah. So this is what I also teach in my dream oracle school is I teach people to understand their own personal dream language, because we have our own symbology and own relationships with different symbols that are different for everybody. And so if you see something in the dream, it has a certain meaning for you, and a completely different meaning for somebody else. And so that's why I find, look up your dreams as like a very last resort. Try and drop into your intuition and your heart and ask from that space, what do these symbols mean to me? And, explore your dream from that place versus you know, going to first thing to do, like look up your dream.
Well, I mean, and that was a huge thing with like my pathway, because I remember I had like a really startling dream, which happy to share and get into. But the point being, though, is that like, utilizing my pathway, I was able to actually kind of figure out and discern the whole meaning for myself. Because if I would repeat that to you, you'd be like, okay, this is telling me, XYZ, but in reality, it's like, nah, it's like ABC is what this actually means in reality.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. And I think that's important when it comes to dream interpretation is giving whoever had the dream the space to discover what it is for themselves. So, whenever I do dream interpretations, it's more about like asking questions to draw it out of you and to connect you to your intuition. Uh, and feel into what it meant and go into like the energy of the dream
I love that.
versus me like, okay, this is what it meant. Because I don't know. You know, it's your dream.
No, that's so powerful, and I'm thinking of it in terms of regards to like therapists, like this day and age, because I went to one time, and I sat there. I was very analytically minded whenever I was younger, and I sat there and I was like, here's what I'm thinking, and like went on for like 30 minutes, like this or that or this or that. We get to the end of it, and he's just like, I think you're overthinking it. And I'm like, I just sit there like, yeah, I know I'm overthinking it. That's not, I didn't come here for you to tell me why I'm overthinking it. But it's to your, before I had no idea, but to your point, it's like, if he was I don't want to say that. I believe that a more skilled therapist or someone who's even helping on any form of emotional, or it sounds like even in a dream space, it's like embodying the person or helping give them the reflection to get them to that point of, okay, what is it that you're looking for? Or, what does it mean to you, as opposed to, it's like, I have my own personal shit that I'm going to attach meaning to any story, any dream that you could give me, and I'm going to make it my own. But that's not the answer for you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um, because yeah, for me, it just feels more powerful to help that person discover and connect in with their own intuition because deep down inside, they know, you know, we all know for ourselves. And so I think it's just more empowering to take that opportunity as well, take that moment as an opportunity to help them connect more deeply with themselves.
Mm. Conscious monkeys, are you looking for a CBD cream that actually works? I've tried many different CBD products and I've really never truly felt like any of them have worked for me. Like maybe there'd be like a little bit of tingling and then it would fade pretty quickly. Then came along Revive CBD. From the first time I tried it on, I could tell that there was something different about this product. I noticed that any joint pain I had was gone within minutes of applying it, and it lasted for significant duration. I don't have an exact time for you guys, but do your own test. So, if you're still looking for the right CBD cream, then this might be the right one for you, because if you resonate with my vibe, then maybe you'll resonate with this vibe. I actually kind of just made that up on the spot, so hopefully you liked it. Check out the link below. And as a side note, like always, the link below is an affiliate link. But again, I would not be promoting them if it didn't work for me. So hopefully it'll work for you. Again, check it out below, myrevibe.com. Get yours today. Conscious Monkeys, if you're looking to start your own podcast, I have the two tools that you need to use to get that show on the road. And the names are Buzzsprout and Riverside. I'm combining these into one ad because, I've honestly had nothing but the best for them. But if you're going to be using one of them, you might be using the other one. So what Buzzsprout is essentially the platform that I use to put my podcast out there. It's the reason you can hear this. That's the reason that I appear on all these different directories. The thing you might also need is that if you're interviewing people, you're going to need Riverside as well. And quite frankly, I'm using it right now to even just record these podcasts because they will even dilate in. Dilate in? I don't think that's the right phrase for it. They will harmonize your voice so that it sounds equivalent. So if I start talking quiet at one point, they have a built-in editor that will actually make your voice sound crisp. I highly suggest Buzzsprout and Riverside. Go check out the links below in the description. And like always, these are affiliate links, so I do get a minor kickback if you do sign up with them. However, like always, they are incredible. The support has been on point and they always get back to me, so I highly recommend them. If you have any questions, they're there to help. So with that being said, go check it out in the link below, and let's get back to the interview. I think that's awesome. I mean, it sounds like you use the vehicle of dreams to help people with that deeper connection.
Yeah, yeah, I try to.
That's
Yeah,
the objective.
it is. Yeah, it's so funny when I think about it. I'm like, "Oh, how did this happen?"
That was an accident.
That was perfect.
Right. So then
Yeah.
where do you kind of sit on like with these astral projections? Because my scope of the reality, the way I've kind of looked at these things is that lucid dreaming's kind of in the same realm of consciousness, or the same, and you might actually disagree with this, because I think you said that you see dreaming as being at the spirit level. And but this is what gets so weird about these conversations. This comes back to language as well. It's like we have all these different words. I heard someone actually call it the shaman realm whenever referring to like astral
Mm.
projections and lucid dreaming. And so I'm like, okay, we gotta get some definitions going here, right? Um, so in my experience, I've identified lucid dreaming and astral projection as being a part of the astral realm, which then is the same level of consciousness. So before I even ask my question, how do those words resonate with you?
Astral projection and lucid dreaming?
Right.
Those
I mean,
words? Yeah.
I guess the astral realm. I mean, would you consider? I guess that's a good point. Would you consider the what I describe as the astral realm being your spirit realm? Are those intertwined?
Yeah, I feel like for me, they're intertwined, and I also feel like, like the whole words comment, it's no matter what we say, I think it's going to be an inadequate way or inadequate words to define something that can't be defined by words, if that makes sense. But I know we're in this human experience and we use words to communicate. And so I do feel that the astral realm, I literally kind of like classify it all as the universe. And it's just like, so the different timelines, the different dimensions, the astral realm, the spirit realm, um, it's all the same. And it's just like different aspects of the same space in different places within that space.
Okay,
It's like
that
if you
makes
look at a
sense.
house, it's like a house and there's the living room, the family room, the dining room, the bedroom, the master bedroom, the bathrooms, the laundry room. It's like that. It's like they're different rooms, but they're all in the same house.
Okay, so like each room is a level of consciousness or state of consciousness, and then the house is the universe.
Yes. Yes, I guess that would be a good way to put it. Yeah, states of consciousness, um, like tuning into different, yeah, states, places, dimensions, timelines.
So then, to even expand on this, right? So if we were to go to sleep, we're then tuning into the dream state of consciousness. Would that be accurate in your assessment?
I guess so, yeah. Yeah, just like tuning into the
Feel
realm
free
of
to articulate it
spirit.
differently.
No, I'm thinking about it. And like I always just say like when I say the dream world, it's like the spirit world. Um and sometimes it feels more real than this world. Sometimes I think it's possible. It probably is more real than this world. Um and so I feel like it can't necessarily be defined by just like one word because it's the infinite. It's everything
Okay.
in one giant soup, all
Well,
mixed
because
together.
it's just one giant soup. We're experiencing a microfraction of it all, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, so then, okay, let me try to reorientate myself in my own house, in my own room of the house. So then, where is the so okay? So whenever I say astral projection, right, I'm thinking of you're actually like kind of you're unable to let's say, manipulate material, right? Like physical material. Like lucid dreaming, in my assessment, is that you're able to actually physically manipulate the structure of conscious the conscious awareness experience that you're in. And that would be my lucid dreaming in my assessment. And then astral projection would be, you're on this physical world, or you're in this on the physical realm, but you're like a layer above, where you're this energetic body that is unable to change the physical structure of it, but you're able to travel, in the blink of an eye, or at the moment of a thought, or, change time. So first of all, do our definitions there line up on the difference between astral projection and lucid dreaming?
No, they're different.
Okay, good start.
So, yeah. Okay. So for me, astral projection is literally just the moment when you are projecting your spirit out of your body. That's astral projection for me. Astral travel is when you are traveling around in your spirit form and you are going about your adventures. So you could almost say that you are like astral traveling all the time in your dreams, not
Hmm.
projecting. But I think some people, they use them kind of interchangeably. So I get your definition of it. Lucid dreaming is when you are astral traveling and you are conscious of it. And then there's also the other form, a deeper form of lucid dreaming, which you are astral traveling and conscious of it and able to control it and shift it and change it. So those are my definitions.
Okay, that's interesting. So if I astral project, then that's kind of just the moment that my astral body is leaving my physical. Now,
Yeah.
once I've astral projected, I can either, well, I guess, so astral projection would be that moment of the body leaving. Astral traveling is then any movement I do after astral projecting. And while I'm astral traveling, I can either interact with this physical world, or maybe, and so maybe this is where we get a little different, but we
Mm-hmm.
interact with this physical world, but I'm not able to manipulate it. But then there's
Mm-hmm.
a caveat shift where then there is a different form of astral traveling, which is lucid dreaming, where I am
Mm-hmm.
actually able to manipulate the fabric of my perceived reality.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because you can definitely astral project and then astral travel to, say, your mom's house and be like, Mom, did you get a new plant? And then, like, wake up and ask her if she got a new plant. And yes, she got a new plant because, yes, you witnessed that while you were astral traveling in this dimension, in this earthly realm. And then you could also, in another dream or later dream, astral travel to, a different time and place, so to speak, and become lucid in that and manipulate that. And then, what deeper conversation this can dive into too is like, how can we lucid dream ourselves awake in this reality? So I believe that this is also a dream. So if this is also a dream, how can we lucid dream this dream? I haven't totally figured it out yet, but I'm just saying, like,
Okay.
this is,
No, I
you
like
know
where
you
this
know
is
what I'm
going.
you know where I'm going. So
I do.
this is where I feel like dreams can be such a great tool for spiritual awakening, because if we can expand our minds and our experiences in these different dreaming spaces, how can that how can we bring those wisdoms into our reality and our experience here?
So, to kind of summarize what you're saying, make sure we're on the same page, make sure the audience is on the same page, because this is going to get fun real quick. What your articulation is that you believe that we are currently in a dream. Now, where it gets interesting, right, is to reverse engineer this. It's because that we dream outward, we have dreams, and those dreams place us into different realities where we then get messages, and we bring that back to this reality. Now, where do you because I have a little bit of a different interpretation of where we're at, but then in that line of thinking, why would this be, if this was a dream, wouldn't we be able to, technically speaking, be able to retroactively snap our fingers and be in a different dream automatically? Like what, in your belief, like what anchors us in this as being our, let's say, anchor reality, or our baseline dream, or our anchor dream?
So I think it's our denseness, like our physical denseness of the material world. And I think it is our state of consciousness that we're not at a place where we can do the things that we can do in the quote unquote dream world that keeps us in this like heavy like I can't snap my fingers and suddenly make this room purple, or snap my fingers and manifest a unicorn.
Right. So then you're, but you are able to escape this the physical density. So then here's the question then. What makes this reality physically dense compared to the other realms whenever you're going to bed and then going somewhere else?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, these are all questions. It's just like I feel like, it's tough for me to say like I believe this.
Sure.
It's like I think this is like this is possible. So like
Okay.
I think that this is possible, that this is a dream. And I think that it is possible that our dreams are more real than this reality. And I think that perhaps what is creating the denseness is just this particular dimension that we think we are more consciously present in. And so I think maybe it's because we've collectively, and I'm just like going off the cuff here, like maybe it's
By all
just that we've
means.
collectively like agreed that, this is a rock. I'm holding up like a little crystal right now, some fluorite. It's like, this is a stone, this is a crystal, and we collectively all believe that this is heart. You know, Water is water and it flows, and we believe that, so it flows. And so it's like we've all kind of, it's like our beliefs create this system and create this world. And then there's also like science, there's like gravity that keeps us together, that keeps us from like not falling apart. So there's those things that also, you know, we experience. And I don't know, maybe we experience it because we believe it. I don't know. These are like really great questions. And yeah, I just really have more questions.
It's almost, I mean, that's honestly feels like spirituality in a nutshell. Is like once you discover like the next layer, you're like, oh, okay, cool, I figured it all out. And then something happens and you're like, wait, now I have 500 more questions. Like,
Totally.
where does this go? But there seems to be an interesting, somewhat truth in what you're saying, because if whenever I go to bed, right, I've always had this belief that, you know, certain dreams, as you've articulated, uh, are me in a different reality. Like, for instance, recently, maybe this was a couple months ago, I was having dreams. I started playing like Apex Legends for a little bit on the phone, and every dream I had was actually like me in Apex Legends, like playing. And I was like, shit, I got to stop playing this game because it's like invoking these dreams. Um, haven't completely stopped, but the point is, right, is that like I felt like I was actually putting myself in a reality where Clayton of some sort was actually in an Apex Legends world or realm, right? So if that holds true, that I am actually experiencing Apex Legends version of Clayton, then who's not to say that that version of me is not dropping into this reality from time to time and saying, oh, like Clayton in a, as a podcast, person, like this is a cool reality to experience. Like this is weird. Like he just talks into this
Mhm.
microphone and someone records him. Like that's kind of interesting. Like,
Yeah, and that Apex guy is like dreaming that he's podcasting, just like you're dreaming of the Apex predator.
right. but so that's
Or
interesting. But
sorry,
then,
no, Apex. I said Apex Predator. That wasn't right. I was thinking something else, but your
well,
video game.
it's funny though because a predator is like the highest rank you can get in Apex.
Oh, okay.
So you do somewhere.
Somewhere.
You knew it
Yeah.
somewhere. It's in there somewhere. But that's interesting, right? Because then, but then there has to be something though that like anchors podcast Clayton to the podcast reality where he hosts a podcast, right? Because it's not like I don't know. Because to me, like this always feels more real than any dream that I've had. I mean, dreams feel real, right? But like afterwards, you know that you were somewhere else, right? Like we consider that being somewhere else or a different experience or a different reality. So there has to be some part of us that actually is like, wait, like this one is my reality. No,
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and I always like because I asked myself that same question, and it's just like I ask myself then, have I just like really bought into this illusion? Like, is this just something that I feel because this is where I'm consciously present? I feel it so strongly because this is where I'm consciously present. Because in the dreams, they feel just as real as this reality. You know, in the dreams, you're doing like weird stuff that doesn't make sense according to this reality. But in that reality, you're like, this is 100% real.
these are the rules.
This bathroom that I'm in is the weirdest bathroom, but it makes sense. You know, you're like, why? So it's kind of like we're having this conversation in this reality or in this dream, and it feels very real and it seems more real. And this is what we are present to in this moment. And then when you go to sleep, you're present to other realities and other moments that feel, for me, just as real as this.
Yes. Well,
It's
because
wild, man. It's wild.
okay. So here's where it gets interesting. So there are techniques, right, to induce lucid dreams, and I've like read a couple books on this. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you got some techniques you heard of this, but there's a couple things, right, where if you're lucid dreaming or whatnot, like there's a couple things you can do to make sure that you are actually lucid dreaming. One of them is to look at your hand and count your fingers because you'll never have five fingers. Number one. Number two is something like rereading a same sentence twice because if you reread it twice, then it'll never be like the same words. Another one is like if you push your finger into your palm, like it'll go through it in a dream. If you push it into like some sort of fabric, it'll go through it. So I don't know what the question is. I mean, I guess the question is like, how does this, like, how would our perceived reality be different and be able to wake us up in a different dream? I, do you understand where I'm going with this? I don't know the right question, but do you like get where I'm going with that?
I think so, maybe. But yes, okay, so let's talk about like these tips on the finger like in the dream. Because I've heard this before. So I started lucid dreaming because somebody talked about lucid dreaming, and that's how I started lucid dreaming. So I never did these techniques. I heard about these techniques like in the last couple of years.
Okay.
And so I tried the whole like it was either like pulling your finger and it'll stretch or like putting your finger and it'll go through your palm. And I remember being in a dream and I was like, this has got to be a dream. And then I remembered that technique and I tried to put my finger through my hand and it did not go through. And so
Really?
I was like, this is the craziest, like, what is happening? Because I was like, that's supposed to work. They say it works, but it didn't work for me. And like, clearly this isn't a dream then. So what's happening? And so I think that experience that I had in the dream world is kind of like this experience in this reality. You know, it's like I thought that that was this. So what's to say this isn't the dream world? What's to say that you can't poke your finger through? Okay, so this is going to get weird. So
I love
when I
weird,
was
so
in
go for it.
Egypt, when I was in Egypt, I don't know if I've ever publicly shared this before. But when I was in Egypt, I was at a restaurant and I was cutting a piece of chicken. So I had my fork holding the piece of chicken And then I had my knife to cut it. And when I went to cut it, my knife went, it was like the Matrix where my knife went through the chicken and through the plate, and the plate like dipped in under the table and like sprung back out. Like that happened. Like
Really?
there was some weird stuff that happened when I was in Egypt. And so that was like the finger going through the hand in this reality. So this is why it there's so many questions. It's like, how do I know this is real? How do
That's
I know?
interesting.
I don't know if this is real. I don't know. Maybe I'm a crazy person. Maybe I should be in like a psych ward, Like crazy shit happens.
Well, I mean, but see, what's weird, right, is that we define people as being crazy because they're experiencing a reality that isn't grounded in quote unquote this one, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading a book by, I think it was one of Dolores Cannon's book. Are you familiar with her and like life regression?
Mm,
No. So she
no,
does
I've
like,
heard of her, but I've heard of her, but I've never read any of her work.
so she basically does like past life regression. She's a hypnotherapist and is like, her whole bit is like, regressing people into a past life, going up into them dying in that past life, and then going into like the spirit realm. And Dr. Michael Newton has a lot of great books as well. But what was really interesting is that I guess there's like this giant quilt that exists, and it's basically the quilt of like the intertwined connection of like all the souls, essentially, where it's basically this never-ending quilt, and it's like the progression of all the souls and how they're intersecting and intertwined with everything. And uh, the guy was like talking to the guy she regressed. His soul was talking to the guy that's in charge of protecting the quilt. And the guy who's protecting the quilt said that, like, the guy, okay, let me back up a little bit. The guy who entered the quilt room asked let's call him the master of the quilt, like, why is this, like, what are these? And basically explained everything that I've explained here. He then went on to say, like, to be careful of this knowledge because there was somebody who was in this reality, in this physical dimension, who became aware of the quilt and actually tried to destroy it. And what happened is that because he did that, it somehow messed up his perception of reality, and he ended up in this physical reality needing to actually go to a psych ward because it became very hard for him to distill reality from like this physical world from the spirit world, because to him it was like he saw all this like shit and he understood how it was all
Mm-hmm.
intertwined, and by knowing, it's almost like by knowing too much, he like screwed up himself in
Mm-hmm.
this physical reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my teacher has talked about things like that. Not about the quilt, but just about how she's like, Holly, you'd never believe how many awakened beings there are that are like homeless or like in psych work. It's like literally sometimes when people awaken too quickly for their physical bodies, like too much light enters their body into their being, and they can't function in this reality anymore. And so yeah, they often can end up in like a psych ward or a place like that, or just like on the street, because they can't function in the way that society is structured and the way that this world functions. They can't function in it. So I've heard that before, so that makes sense.
uh, that's interesting. That's interesting to hear you almost validating that too. Conscious Monkeys. I've got something out there for all my coaches. Anybody who has digital courses, anybody who's creating content, whether it's audio or video, you got to check out SuperPass. SuperPass is this super dope platform that I've been using now, and they're actually what has enabled my app to work. It's what's enabled me to start generating income and to help people more effectively. If you are a content creator, you create audio, video, whatever it may be, SuperPass might be the choice for you because they'll provide you with your own app and they have a great online service to also help you out. So I'm not going to put in too much because everything they do is way too much to pack into this one ad. I will say go click the link below because that is where you'll be able to find all the information. This is an affiliate link and I wouldn't be promoting them if it didn't help me. Click the link below and go check out SuperPass. With that being said, Conscious Monkeys, let's get back to the last segment of the interview. That's crazy, because then it's like, that's where it gets really interesting, right? Because we write people off as being crazy, and then it's like, and this is wow, holy shit. Because then, yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but like it's like the line between crazy and genius is like very thin.
I've heard that.
That's so. I mean, it's crazy, but that's wild, right? That's wild, right? Because we always denounce
Yeah.
people who could actually be geniuses as crazy, but it's like you kind of have to be crazy in order to, transform the world in your image or transform the world the way you see fit. But then,
Yeah.
do you have something to say on that?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about, sometimes when I see people who, yeah, maybe have some sort of like mental disability, I'm always like fascinated by them too. Cause I'm like, what is your world like? Like, cause your reality, how they experience the world is so different. And to me, I find that just really interesting because it's real for them, just as real as this is for us. Like, and even my world is completely different than your world. And like, we're having this moment where we're connecting right now, but like, your reality, I'm sure, is so different than my reality. And that's also interesting to think about from like a dreaming perspective, too. This is why I like question so many things. I'm like, what is real? I don't know. It's like we I'm going on a tangent. Anyways, go
Do
on.
it. No, go with your tangent if you're feeling it.
No, I was just thinking about like time too. How time in dreams exists so differently than time here. Time is such a benefit in certain regards because it's like, well, we had our scheduled meeting now at 11:30 and it's like we had to meet at that time. Otherwise it wouldn't have happened. So linear time is really helpful. And it also, I think, can limit us in possibilities of reality and what reality actually is. Because when I'm dreaming, for example, I literally feel like I'll dream like an entire week or an entire month in an evening, like over, say, 8 hours. So it's like, how is that? What is time? What is anything?
I mean, there's a lot of truth in that, right? Because I know I've had one or two dreams, not too many, but a couple dreams that have had that feeling of being like 72 hours or like just like they would never end, which I mean, looking back, it's just so wild because you're like, this happened, and this happened, then that happened, then this happened, then that happened. And it's like all of that's wrapped into only a couple hours of, this time. So this time
Mm-hmm.
of like this
Mm-hmm.
physical reality time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
This is
such a
quite a
wild
tangent
concept.
we've gone on from
I,
like,
I
are
love it.
dreams real or is this more real?
That's what we do here. That's what this podcast's all about.
I love it.
Yeah. So you hit it. You checked off what we were trying to get out of this.
Okay, great. I love
uh,
conversations like this. It really gets you thinking.
yeah. No, I mean, especially if I'm able to push your. I mean, because the way I view it is like I'm trying to push my line of thinking or the way I see it, and then to bring on somebody who completely sees the world in a different light. With regards to being a dream oracle, yeah, it pushes my way of thinking, right? Because I've always, to get back to where I see it, like the way I saw it, at least before this conversation, was that, this is the reality that I chose to experience. And I get that there's other realities. Like my fundamental view was like, okay, I have a soul, and a part of my soul was like, okay, this is the fundamental reality. But at the same time, like I completely agree that there's parallel realities of my existence that are occurring simultaneously. So like, what is it that's fixes me into this reality as being like the baseline, right? Like could you imagine if you woke up tomorrow and I was no longer like a podcast person, or I was like I don't know, some sort of, let's say I was homeless for all intents and purposes, like let's say I was homeless doing nothing, had too much information, was basically denounced crazy. It's like it's weird because you like how could you even possibly wake up in that timeline because of the knowledge that I have now. And part of me feels like I'm starting to overanalyze this, right? I'm unable to almost articulate the sense of being. Because it's like you'd have to completely forget
Yeah.
that you were a podcast person.
Yeah. Yeah. And, okay, so I wanna back it up a bit because I wanna say, like, I totally feel you on, like, how you perceive what this experience is, because on many levels, I do as well, where I'm just like, my soul decided to have this experience. I'm Holly Emerson, and I'm this dream oracle here on Earth, and, like, I'm very present to this reality, and yes, there's all these other dimensions, and why am I present to this one? What makes this one more real than the other? So I totally see that, and I also just have a lot of questions. Because the dreams, like, just they okay, so I had this dream recently, like 2 months ago, where I met an old friend in a dream, and he was like, "Oh, I met your other version." And I was like, "Oh, cool. Tell me all about her. Like, what does she do?" And I can't remember what she does. She did some sort of, like, professor research type work or something, and it made so much sense that this other version of myself did this other thing. And so I woke up and I was like, "Oh my god." So, is that other version of me, like, fully in that experience right now? But it's me? But, like, and then the other thought is, like, if we're all one in the sense of, like, we are all one soul, one energy, and we're all just, like you're me, I'm you, my dog is me, everything that I see is like a reflection. Everything you see is a reflection of you. So it's just you. There's, like, nothing else in the universe but just you. Like, that's kind of wild to think about too.
I've had that. It's interesting. I've had that conversation before on this podcast, but the way you worded it felt different. Like it's just you, which is
Well, because it kind of feels lonely,
kind of feels like
but it also doesn't. It's weird.
God bless the illusion of separation, right? Yeah, and I mean, I guess this is why people would be driven to insanity, because if you sit there and analyze this to a certain extent and you get to a point that it's like, okay, like, and all is just me, it's like, I don't know, because I guess that feels like it would kind of trigger like a dark night of the soul in some regards, where it's like, oh shit, like that deep feeling, but then you hit this catalyst of like, all right, cool, I can do whatever I want. Like there is no like limitation, right? Like I can create or bring together anybody or anything that I would want, and I guess it can be, it could take you to that realm of crazy, or it could really be an empowering thought.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It could go either way.
Choose your own destiny.
Yeah. Choose your own adventure.
Yeah. I mean, that's what gets really interesting with regards to like, that's what really gets really interesting with regards to the more physical world stuff of like, judgment or self criticism, because it's like, how many times have we been told like when you judge somebody else, you're just judging yourself, and it's really, it really gets, and I mean, even just having that lens of like, trying to see how someone is experiencing what they're experiencing, it's such like a it's such like that's a mind twist on its own. Like I have gone out to like bars and restaurants and just like saw people walking by and been like, I wonder what it's like to like be that person, and like really try to drop in and be like, okay, what like is their life like, and like how it's crazy how like accurate you can actually get sometimes with like the way that their life shaped. But it's just like, it's like that is a completely different reality that I'm not experiencing.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's wild.
Well, so then, but then I guess it gets interesting, because if you trace it back to like the spirit, your spirit at some point had to choose that you wanted to, I don't know. It's where my mind's going with this is like how much of this is actually beneficial and then how much of this is kind of just like for fun. But I don't know. I guess it all is for fun. I feel like I'm getting too analytical.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder if we're already in, like, the metaverse, you know? I like joked with my husband. I was like, maybe you and I are actually like on a first date and we're going to go to a movie after. And this is the first date, like this life. And we've just like put on like this like headset and we've gone into this virtual reality and we're living this life. And then we're going to take this headset off and we're going to just be somewhere else and we're going to go have dinner and a movie or something after.
I always find it interesting how much what's the word I'm looking for here? How many parallels there are with like simulation theory and like the reality that we're actually experiencing. Because there is so much. I mean, I feel like I look at it from a soul perspective. Like the soul is the more real, more real. That's even a weird thing. The more real version that is actually, let's say, in control or in charge. And it said, "Hey, I want to have a human experience." And a part of signing up for that, putting on its meat suit, its human meat suit. It was like a part of that is actually forgetting where I came from and then just trusting the process or learning the rules of the game and then, figuring out your way within them.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this Apple Plus TV show called Severance.
Okay.
And the basic storyline, there's not going to be any spoiler alerts, but the basic storyline is there's these people that go to work and they've agreed to let this company do this like procedure on their brain. So when they go into the elevator at their work and they go down and they arrive at, their workstation, but when they arrive, when the elevator opens at the bottom, and it's also interesting that the elevator goes down, they descend, and then when it opens, they forget everything on the outside world. So they call it their innie and their outie, and it's like we and they so they don't know any their outie doesn't know anything about like their work, their innie, and their innie doesn't know anything about their outie. And I
Oh,
kind of feel like we're all innies right now because we don't remember.
that's gotta be so true. I'll have to check that out. You said it was called Severance.
Yeah, Severance. It's
I'll have to
it's a
check
really
that
weird show, but it kind of blew my mind when I was like, "Oh my god, we're innies right now."
out. That's too crazy. I mean, and then I don't know. So then, well, but here's what's interesting, and what's like still picking at my mind is the story you shared whenever you were in Egypt. Is like if you were able to experience that bending, of that table with that knife cutting through it, that to me that's like very much like, oh, what happens in a dream. Do you feel like that was something you controlled? Was that something that just kind of happened? Like why wouldn't you experience that more often if this wasn't a dream?
Yeah, I mean, those are great questions. I think I personally haven't experienced it. Maybe because like my mind is like, no, that can't happen. That can't be real. Like there's
Right.
maybe a lack of belief in it because it literally defies physics as we know it, right? I mean, I'm not a physicist, but I think it probably doesn't make
Definitely break some
scientific
laws.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've got some law breaking there. So, um, I think I think as humans, we're like really fragile with our beliefs. Like we hold on to our beliefs no matter what they are. We hold on to them really tightly. And it's that inflexibility for me, that I haven't been able to like put my knife through my plate again. It's like even though I'm open to it, there's got to be somewhere within me that's like, no, no, that can't be.
That's interesting. There was something I was thinking about recently. Oh, so I spent like a good amount of time like in the fat industry or the fat industry. I was fat in high school, but in the fitness industry, in the fitness industry of like trying to learn that stuff. And something that always kept getting repeated was this idea that you cannot gain muscle and lose fat. It was like this idea was like you can either be gaining muscle and gaining fat, or you can be losing muscle and losing fat. And the goal was is to just minimize the amount of fat or minimize the amount of muscle that you lost and minimize the amount of fat that you gained. And where it got interesting is I was actually thinking about this the other day, and I was like, there has to be a way to gain fat and lose, or there has to be a way to gain muscle and lose fat. And then the next thought I had was that's impossible. And then it came in and I was like, why is that impossible? Like the amount of shit that I've experienced in the last year of my life, let alone just the conversations I've had on this podcast. And we're going to sit here and say that it's actually impossible to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. Like to me, that kind of just like blew my mind.
Mm.
And it kind of goes to your point of like, how deep does the programming go? How deep does the matrix actually go to what we determine as being impossible and possible? And it's something I also love that
Mm-hmm.
I'll wrap it up on is like, if you, the word impossible is basically I'm possible, which is so
Mm-hmm.
hilarious that we, created it in such a fashion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I remember I had this dream message, and it was um like, oh, I had it on one of my candles. I had this candle collection and I had it on the candle, but I'm trying to get it word for word. But it was like, you you'd be surprised at like how possible the impossible is. Like we already do so many impossible things. Like how does our body function? Like that's it should be impossible. Like our heart beating and like all these things firing, like that seems impossible, but it's possible. And yes, the impossible is so possible. It's just the impossible is literally just like an opinion. It's a belief. It's a thought.
Right. And I mean, where my mind went with it, right, is like the whole, what was it? Like, flight, like airplanes. For the longest time in the world, everyone said that's impossible. That's impossible. It's impossible to fly planes. And now, present day, first of all, it's a miracle, but now we just take it for granted as like, oh yeah, of course you can fly planes. Like, yeah, they were dumb back in the day. It's like, well, let's
Mhm.
transcend this. And it's like, well, then what else are we saying is impossible that is probably possible? We just don't know how. It's almost like someone intelligent got to the end of knowing how and was just like, I'm throwing up my arms. That's impossible. And then everyone was like, oh, okay. Like this really smart person said it's
Mhm.
impossible. So we all just need to accept that it is impossible.
Yeah, yeah, and even going back to like fitness, look at athletes. Look at the Olympic athletes from like 50 years ago to the Olympic athletes today. The records that are being broken today, the things that like gymnasts are doing today, like it's crazy. The human body, like we have like surpassed the limits every year of what, you know, we thought was the best. It's impossible to be that fast or whatever, but
The
it's
barrier just keeps
possible.
moving.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, because I know there was I think it's the 4 minute mile is for like 70 years or something. Like they had scientists explaining why it's impossible for like the human body to run a 4 minute mile. They like everybody, it was like 80 years or something of people just like saying that it's impossible for people to run a 4 minute mile. And then after all this time, somebody actually ran it in like 3:58 or something. And after he broke it, within like the next 6 months, like 17 other people broke the record. It's like, it's so like to me, that shit is just
It's like
so
the 100
crazy.
monkeys,
What's
right?
the
The
100
100 monkey
monkeys?
thing.
What's that?
So, okay, I'm probably gonna butcher this, but it's like we grow collectively. And so there was these monkeys that were on like this one isolated island, and they like started I don't know if they were trying to like open something, but they started like using tools or something like that to open, I don't know, like a coconut or something. And then like or it was like they were given some sort of problem.
Okay.
And when they figured it out, there was like monkeys on the other side of the world that also
Oh
figured
yeah.
it out. So it's like this 100th monkey thing. And so it's like when we as a collective expand our consciousness or expand a belief. So in this case, the 4 minute mile, it's like suddenly we saw it's possible. And then now we're pushing beyond, because we know that that's possible. It's like I grew up figure skating, and when people were doing like triples and quads, it's like 50 years ago, it was just like, an axle.
Yeah.
And now it's like, how can people rotate that fast in the air? It's like, no, that's impossible, but it's possible. It's just, yeah, it's really great um, to think about our beliefs and like our limiting beliefs. And what is actually possible.
I know that there was also that similar phenomenon happened with uh, BMX riding, because I remember when I was a little kid, like doing a double backflip on a motorbike was like considered like the craziest thing, like impossible. I'm pretty sure I have to look back at that,
Mhm.
but I'm pretty sure they considered it impossible to do a double backflip on a I think it was like best trick for BMX. And now it's like people are just hitting like triple black backflips like it's nothing, and it's just like one of those things. It's so crazy, like that's quite frankly the mind. And even on your thing about the 100th monkey, I know, to even as a real world humans, to prove that this like extends to us, I know that they have gone back and actually recorded, I think it was over 300, it was at least 100, but well, so let's say 100 different instruments or tools that they had found in like all over the world, right? In like Asia, in like this is like back in the day, like Mayan civilization, Egyptians, like Asian, all of these civilizations that would have never had contact with each other. And they found that at like the same exact time period, like within the span of like 10 to 15 years, something like that, they all created hammers, they all created bowls, they all created like these different like technological progressions, and yet they would have had no conversation with each other whatsoever.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating.
And it's cool too. Yeah, it's cool too to make it even personal. Like I've kind of taken on, I think I've kind of taken this on as like my thing with this podcast is to be able to push people past that limit of like what's possible, because I started realizing, and this is actually probably a different way of articulated before, but I've started realizing that like my limitations are kind of governed by the limit of what the entire world believes. So like, for example, right, if people don't believe that a human being can actually fly without any, let's say without anything, we'll just say what with, it's probably a bad example because that's probably a pretty limiting belief. Let's say read people's energies or see an energy. If I want to be able to expand my ability to do that, then it's like almost it's almost a it's almost beholden to me. It's advantageous to me to help other people see how possible things that we consider being impossible are, so that if I'm able to help expand the consciousness around anything, then it would be in my benefit, because then I would be able to benefit from that expansion as well.
Mhm. Yeah. So, is that why you're doing this podcast?
Well, it started out because I really just was having connected conversations with people, and like because I had went through like psilocybin therapy and stuff to like go through trauma and sexual trauma, and really alleviated a lot of what's the word I'm looking for here, really alleviated a lot of suffering in my life. And so I was like, I'm having connected conversations. People are on the same frequency as me. So let me start talking to people. And then it kind of transitioned into spirituality. So then I wanted to focus on people in the spirituality space. And it really kind of did it selfishly just for myself to have these conversations. But I think as that's been like going on and progressing, it's really come to this, like there's just more reasons to do it, like help other people
Mhm.
arise, get people out of suffering, expand other people's consciousness, because then it expands my own, so I think it's like one of those things
Mhm.
that's like this extra topping on the sundae.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe there was like this it's like maybe you're conscious of it now, but when you started it, it was actually like your soul pushing you to do this for this result, but you weren't aware of it, but you're more aware of it now.
That's so true. There's definitely truth into that, because it sounds like it's pretty
Yeah.
similar to what you
Yeah.
experienced as well, with like the idea of wanting to help people at a mass scale. And who knows, like we even talked about at the beginning, like maybe right now it's just doing a dream oracle, starting a dream oracle business, and then down the road it'll evolve.
Mhm. Yeah, who knows where things will go. But yeah, I mean it is yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting when you look at like motives behind things.
Your intentions. your dream
Yeah.
what do we call it? Dream
Dream incubation.
dream
Yeah.
incubation.
I don't know who I don't know who came up with that term first, but it wasn't me because I called it intentions, and then I learned that everybody else called it dream incubation.
It's like the same. It's like almost just like a niche down version of intentions.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
so here's something that just came to mind. Like, would so you were saying earlier that you will work with people to figure out their question, and then once they figure out their question and their intention, you just go to bed, sleep on it, and answer that question. Is there? I would assume that then puts a limit on how many people. Like, are you only able to do one person per night then?
Yeah, and I limit the readings that I do lately just because I'm doing so much work with my students in the dream world.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I try and limit it. I think I'm going to open up some more readings here soon. Um, so yeah, but yeah, usually it depends on the type of reading, but sometimes I'll even dream for one person for like 3 nights because I find that I'll get layers of answers. So I get like a fuller picture of how to explain to the person so they can maybe more fully understand what it is that they need to heal, understand maybe where that seed was planted in their life, that belief was planted, so they can like really go back to fully understand. And so sometimes, most of the time, no, actually, it depends. It depends on the client, but sometimes I'll dream for 3 nights. Sometimes it'll be like one night, and I like everything came through.
Interesting. That's
Hmm.
interesting. And so then once you have like all that information, do you just like give it back to them like, hey, here's what happened? Or do you put some sort of like interpretation on it? Or do you like work with them to figure out the interpretation for themselves?
So for those dreams, because they're my dreams, I interpret them. Like
Okay.
usually when I have dreams like that, I'll get like a download in the dream. So it's weird. It's like I'll see the movie of the dream, the whole dream, and then literally spirit, it feels like something is being like put through like my crown and like put into my brain to understand everything. And it'll like usually kind of jolt me awake a bit, and then I'll record it all down, and then I'll also remember the dream. So when I talk to my clients, we'll usually connect over Zoom, and sometimes it depends on the client, but sometimes I'll explain the dream and then I'll share about the messages, or sometimes I'll just share the messages and maybe some key symbols that came up. But for those dreams, how it works is I have my own personal dream language, and my guides and I have worked to understand, like, so my guides send me the messages and they speak to me in my dream language because we know my dream language, my guides and I. And so my guides will connect with the guides of my client and my client's higher self, give that information to my guides, and then they distill it to me through my dream language.
Mm, gotcha.
So that's why it's not really effective for, like, I don't need to tell the client the whole dream because they might try and interpret it in a different way. And so sometimes that can be good. Like there might be, like I said, some things that I'll share, but generally it's in my dream language. So it probably won't make sense to the client.
Gotcha. That's pretty cool. So then do you do like interpretations for other people, or do you try to stay away from that?
I have like interpretation, like intuitive guidance sessions that I'll do. So if somebody's like really stumped on a dream, um, we can connect, and usually like I do actually get quite a few intuitive hits around what the dreams are, and we'll dialogue and we'll discuss it. And like I said before, it's like I try and connect them with their intuition to understand what the dream meant for them. And so I do that in a way by asking specific questions to help them go deeper within themselves to find those answers. So that's kind of how my dream interpretation sessions work, that are a bit different. I have done dream oracle readings for people when they've had reoccurring dreams and they're like, why do I keep having this dream? And then I will go into the dream world and find out why they're having the dream and then tell them why.
Mm,
So I've done readings like that too, which I actually find those ones to be more effective because it's the human mind isn't involved. It's just
right.
spirit, the dreams, and this is the message.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's
Mm.
interesting because that's something, even like in my pathway stuff where I've started been able to, I've started, even in my normal life, I'm starting to be able to discern like whenever it's my, and you probably heard it throughout this podcast too, whenever it's like my human mind, like stepping in, trying to analyze, trying to rationalize, as opposed to just the almost reflex nature or the reflex words that I'm thinking of. And it's like, oh, this is it. Like, and I have no clue where sometimes it comes from. And it's just like, this is it. Say this.
Mm. Hmm.
Yeah. um,
Yeah.
Let me see here. So what, I don't know. I'm kind of running out of questions. Do you have anything else you want to share? Maybe we might just wrap this up early.
I don't think there's anything else. I don't know. Just I guess if um yeah, I guess I could tell people that if they are curious in exploring their dreams more and want to join my dream oracle school, I do have a free 14-day trial. So they can always test it out, see if the energy vibes with them, see if it's something they want to do. So I'll give you the link. It's just hollyemerson.com/dream, but I'll give you the link so you can share that. And I don't think there's anything else. I was just kind of this is a fun conversation because usually, most podcasts are like very dream focused and there's like all these questions and I love those. But this is also fun because I love talking about all these like questions of reality and like what is this human experience and what are we doing here and why.
I'm glad we could bring it up, right? Because it's always fascinating because I love bringing on people from like these different walks of life. You know, like you're in the dream space. You know, I bring on people from just different areas, and it's always interesting to see like where there's some overlap, and then there's different views on certain things. And so, you know, I see it as kind of its avenue into the deeper realms of discussion. And so, you know, in my opinion, we got to that deeper realm. So I don't know. Now I'm
Awesome.
just getting that ping to wrap it up.
Awesome. That works too.
Well, so you kind of already jumped ahead, which is, you know, admirable, but I love giving the floor to my guests. If there's anything you want to encourage people, if there's anything you want to promote, you know, like you already mentioned, I'm going to take any link that you send me, drop it down below. I don't know if I did, we'll talk about it offline, but so if there's any links that you sent me or send me, you feel free to reference those. So the floor is yours for whatever you want to promote or encourage. So yeah, all you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest thing is like I love, empowering people to understand their dreams, and that is primarily through my Dream Oracle School. I do have like a free dream meditation, so if people want that, I'll give you the link to that. And I also have um, a dream interpretation guide that guides people to understand their own personal dream language. So I'll give you the link to that. They can purchase that. It's a digital guide and it's got a whole bunch of different ways of looking at your dreams from an energetic perspective and an intuitive perspective. And there's no other kind of dream guide out there. It's not going to teach you about symbols in your dream. It's going to teach you how to intuitively connect with your higher self through your dreams. So if people are interested in that, I'll give you that link. It's just, yeah, it's my dream guide. And follow me on Instagram. That's kind of where I'm most present. And I share dream tips and all that fun stuff there. And I also welcome DMs. So if anybody has any questions, my DM box is always open. So I love connecting.
And to verify, that's how we got connected was through the DM. So,
Yeah, yeah, totally.
so she's right. They are open. But yeah, I definitely
Yeah.
know. Go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
Is it? I definitely know I'm gonna have to grab the dream meditation from you for sure because I'm big on meditating, and so anything dream related and meditating related, I know I'll want that for sure. So I'm sure there's others
Sounds
out
good.
there. Hell yeah! Well,
Yeah, thank
Holly,
you so much for having me.
yeah, thank you for coming on. We had some mic problems at the beginning, but we made it. So That's what's
Yeah.
important. Honored to have you. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, and I love it. These dream questions always get interesting. So, we'll have to do it again in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Just reach out, send me a DM. You have my email.
Yeah.
But no, thank you so much for having me on and taking the time.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. I love having these conversations, and glad we could figure out something, figure out the crazies and geniuses of the world.
Totally.
Well, with that being said, Conscious Monkeys, I hope you guys got something from this and Holly's amazing wealth of knowledge on dreams. Being a dream oracle, go check her stuff out because this was fascinating. I know I'll for sure be checking something out with her. But if you don't check anything out with her, that's totally cool because we will all meet up in the 6th dimension.